Hello class, today we're going to start with chapter 2 of title 1, and that speaks of consideration. Now, what is the presumption for consideration that is dealt with section 24? Every negotiable instrument is deemed prima facie to have been issued for a valuable consideration, and every person whose signatures appear thereon to have become a party thereto for value. So the presumption there is that when you issue a negotiable promissory note or a negotiable bill of exchange or a check, for instance, you issued it for a valuable consideration. Ibig sabihin, goods were taken or money was loaned and the like, no? So there's always this presumption for a valuable consideration, even if you are not going to put it in the instrument itself. Oftentimes, I see negotiable instruments like let's say promissory note na nilalagyan nila ng for value received, no? But even in the absence of that phrase, no, the presumption there is that it is issued for a valuable consideration, and that is dealt with by section 24. Now, in section 25, value, what constitutes? Value is any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract. An antecedent or pre-existing debt constitutes value. Take note of that. Pag may utang ka, the utang at saka yung utang mo, eventually, it was reduced, your liability was reduced in writing in form of a negotiable promissory note, then the utang is which is a pre-existing debt, constitutes value. And is deemed such whether the instrument is payable on demand or payable at a determinable future time. Section 26 gives us another classification of a holder, and that is a holder for value. Where value at any time has been given for the instrument, the holder is deemed a holder for value in respect to all parties who become such prior to that time. Class, we have studied initially, no, because that is dealt with by section 52. Initially, we have discussed who is a holder in due course. And section 26 discusses who is a holder for value. Take note that a holder in due course is always a holder for value, but some holder for value may not be holders in due course. So take note of that. A holder in due course is always a holder for value. And what constitutes a holder for value? Where the value has been given at the time for the instrument, the holder is deemed to be a holder for value in respect to all parties who become as such prior to that time. Okay? So holder for value holds the instrument because of a valuable consideration. And the presumption is that if you are a holder for value with respect to prior parties to that time. No? Okay, so section 27, when lien on the instrument constitutes holder for value. Where the holder has a lien on the instrument arising from either contracts or by implication of the law, he is deemed to be a holder for value to the extent of such lien. Now, what is the effect if the holder is not a holder for value or there is a want of consideration? That is dealt with by section 28. No, 28. Effects of want of consideration. Absence or failure of consideration is a matter of defense as against any person not a holder in due course. Therefore, absence of value is a personal defense. No? When you allege that there was no valuable consideration and the holder of the instrument is a holder in due course, then he could still enforce on the instrument because absence or want of consideration is just a personal defense. And partial failure of consideration is a defense pro tanto whether the failure is an asserted or liquidated amount otherwise. Okay. Suffice it to say that for article section 28, no, for section 28, take note that want or absence of want of consideration is a defense not available to a holder in due course. Ibig sabihin, if the holder is a holder in due course and your defense of not paying on the instrument is that there's want of consideration, then the holder in due course can still enforce on the instrument because that is a personal defense. No? You study this in relation to your study of oblicon, no, sa contracts ninyo. No? What are the essential elements of a valid contract? consent, object, cause. So in the absence of object, what is the presumption there? But if the promissory note, the negotiable promissory note falls in the hands of a holder in due course, then even if there is want of consideration, he can still enforce it because the presumption there is that he is a holder for value under the pretext that every holder in due course is a holder for value. Okay, now, Section 29, we come to the concept of accommodation party. Who is this accommodation party? Yung tao na hindi talaga siya kasama dun sa agreement ba, pero for whatever reasons, no, pumasok siya doon to accommodate somebody, no, to accommodate a party private to the contract or to the instrument. An accommodation party, Section 29. An accommodation party is one who signed the instrument as a maker, drawer, acceptor, or endorser without receiving value thereof and for the purpose of lending his name. Na? So, no value received for the purpose of lending his name. Like, let us say, I am the creditor. I do not trust the debtor. So, I would say, I will lend you money so long as you can ask X to execute a promissory note for and on your behalf. Ibig sabihin, you are the accommodated party, X is the accommodation party, no? X is the accommodation party, you are the debtor is the accommodated party. So that is the scenario here, no? So for the purpose of lending his name without receiving any consideration as such person is liable on the instrument to a holder for value. Ibig sabihin, even if you are just an accommodation party, you are liable to a holder for value, notwithstanding that such holder at the time of taking the instrument knew him to be only an accommodation party. This is different from an agent class. Ha? An agent has no liability at all so long as he discloses his principal, he engages his capacity as an agent, and he acts within his authority. An accommodation party is different. Na? Wala talaga siya kasali sa contract, hindi talaga siya kasali sa contract. Kaya lang, for the purpose of lending his name, no, give credit to the credit, no, to the credit, then he signs. No, then he signs. In that case, he is liable as if siya ang nakautang, na siya ang nakautang. He is liable to the holder for value, even the holder for value knows for a fact that he is just an accommodation party. Okay? So that's it, na? An accommodation party may be an accommodation maker, na, accommodation drawer, accommodation acceptor, or accommodation endorser. Sir, sino yung accommodation maker? Yun nga, sabi ko kanina, may utang yung isang tao, no? But you do not trust that person. Nangungutang yung isang tao, but you do not trust that person. But you trust his friend, so his friend may be an accommodation party. Sabi mo ganun, pwede kitang pautangin so long as X, your friend, will issue a promissory note to my favor. No? In that case, X is the accommodation party, you are the accommodated party, accommodation maker yan siya. Or you could also be an accommodation drawer, no? Accommodation drawer. Like let us say, the drawee does not trust you, no? Tapos he will request your friend X to execute an accommodation. Tapos X execute as a drawer. In that case, X is the accommodation drawer and you are the accommodated drawer. Sa accommodation acceptor naman, let us say, a bill of exchange was issued, no? A bill of exchange was issued, tapos it was presented to the drawee. The drawee does not trust, no? The drawee does not trust the drawer who gives order. So he says na I will not accept that unless si Y will come in and accept that for and on my behalf. In that case, Y will be liable. Because eventually, sa negotiation class, that will be on chapter 3, no? We will discuss the different liabilities of these persons, no? So, pag pumayag si Y to accept the instrument for the benefit of the drawer, then Y is the accommodation drawer, no? Accommodation acceptor. Okay, accommodation endorser, just the same, is just the same, huh? Nag-endorse, I don't trust your endorsement, but you require somebody to endorse it, so that I can take the instrument and trust on the representation of that somebody. Because take note, class, if your signature appears in an instrument and you do not know as to what capacity you are signing the instrument, na you are considered as an endorser. So dito sa accommodation endorser, nag-sign ka sa instrument for the benefit of the supposed endorser whom the endorsee do not trust, na. So in that case, you will be liable as an endorser, and later you will find out that an endorser has a corresponding liability also. Okay, so that settles chapter 2 of title 1. Next meeting, we will discuss chapter 3 of title 1. Medyo mahaba ito, and that deals with negotiation. Have a good day, class.